Hey, and welcome back to the Lunch Room Syndicate at the Jack Table. I am Jay.
And I'm not. I'm
Well,
Christopher.
Nat, what are we doing today?
Today we are doing an NFL all time team number two because it's the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, and they sure are a number two.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
I know we like to have a discussion on who our face of the franchise is, but I don't think there's much of a discussion this time.
The clear, the clearest of clear answers, Mister Jim Brown, the greatest Brown ever. What? How can you argue against it? It's
Not just the greatest Brown ever. If we get into an all NFL team at some point. His name is going to be up in the halfback spot, where we are going to be talking about him as the greatest halfback. Okay, well, I got a couple more to add to your easy eliminations, and Brian Sipe and Bernie Kosar need to be out of here because I don't think this is a close race.
No, it's really not. I was trying to add a little bit of drama to it, but yeah, no. This one's pretty easy. Al Graham, the only quarterback Hall of Famer for the Cleveland Browns. Probably number two in fans of the franchise in terms of people that you know from the Browns, or at least up there as well.
All right, well, that moves us over to the running back position.
Well, we've already got one out of the way, Mr. Brown, and I'm going to guess that the two in particular for you are the two men who also shared the backfield, Ernest Miner and Kevin Matt.
Well, are you in agreement that it's coming down to those two?
I'm okay with it, yeah.
Well, we have these two players, and I think if we did have some Browns fans in here,
You hear that, YouTube? We want you at the Lunch Room Syndicate when we do these live on Twitch at www.twitch.tv/ZunkerLRS. Come tell us your opinions. Let us know what you think. Maybe even your input could help us make a decision. Thank you.
they are screaming Kevin Mack because they do not want Ernest Biner on this list. I think we have to give it to Kevin there because, one, he does have the numbers there backing it up. And two, we might as well go back to QB and put John Elway on as best QB for the Browns if we're going to be putting Biner on. I mean, the difference isn't too much.
Right.
So I prefer Ernest Biner as a back myself.
I want to get to in the wide receivers. Some of these guys I took a slight little liberty toward because they weren't considered actual wide receiver.
For me, there are two that, like, I don't need a list at. I'm throwing them on there and moving on, but we have to pick a third spot yet.
Paul Warfield obviously is the obvious one for me.
Yeah.
Just ahead of his time. Really, really great wide receiver in an era where it was tough to be a great wide receiver.
Yeah. And then the other one, obvious for me, again, going back to, Cleveland when they were so close quite a few times before they took off for Baltimore, Webster Slaughter.
Fair enough.
I'm going to make a case for one other person before we go on. Max Speedy, not only a Hall of Famer, but look at that ridiculous ass helmet.
That ridiculous ass helmet and that name, Max Speedy.
Better name. You got a ridiculous helmet, and you made the Hall of Fame. When you're comparing that, sorry, Gary, you're done. Now we're looking at tight ends. Yeah, I don't like these names, Milk Morin and Johnny Brewer, on here. Really seem like you put them on just so you didn't have one name on this list.
That would be accurate.
Yeah, it's Ozzie Newsome by a mile.
Absolutely.
Another guy that if we didn't have Jim Brown to talk about for face of the franchise, Ozzie Newsome would have been in the discussion. But there's quite a few names on here that it is gonna be hard for me to narrow it down to four. Mm-hmm. Maybe not as hard as I thought, because just looking over it, I think I'm at five. that are like in serious consideration. One of them's a kicker, which kicker. If you didn't have Lou Groza on here, Phil Dawson would have to be in consideration. But if we're going head to head, and I'm not taking two kickers.
No, God no.
Let's just get that over with. And if I have Lou Groza or Phil Dawson, you go Lou Groza.
Lou Groza, one of the few kickers in the Hall of Fame. Although I think he did play some other positions, so he wasn't just a pure kicker. But I don't know if he's number one, but I think he's at least the most obvious choice here to me, and probably the best Browns player of the new Browns era. I think we can easily put on in the top 4 Joe Thomas.
Okay, I'm glad that's the name you were going with. That was my number one spot. The only one that I was going back and forth was Gene Hickerson.
Yeah, Gene Hickerson. Gene Hickerson, Doug Deacon, both over 200 games played in the offensive line position is nothing to sniff at. Gene Hickerson is a Hall of Famer as well. 3 times Pro Bowl, one time first team All Pro, or 3-time first team All Pro. I can't read my own stuff. Gene Hickerson probably is on this.
I'm looking at 2 guys who played wide receiver, one guy who also played halfback, both kick returners, and both probably the most exciting player on the Cleveland Browns team while they were playing as kick returners, Eric Metcalf, Josh Cribbs.
Absolutely.
And I don't even know, like we were talking before, we're only taking one kicker. I'm happy taking 2 kick returners when they're Metcalf and Cribbs.
Metcalf was a better offensive player than Josh Cribbs.
Eric Metcalf is a better offensive threat.
Yeah, not that he had 7 kick return, punch and return touchdowns too, so it's not like he was
again, I don't think it's a huge gap between the two, but if we're going to have to say, which one's better at what, that would be what it is.
So for me, I think the offensive production being pretty significantly higher for Eric Metcalf leans me towards Metcalf over Josh Cribbs.
Ranking the 2 of them, I would take Metcalf over Cribbs. All right, well, now we are over to the defensive line.
The guy I remember the most from the early 90s, and probably until Myles Garrett gets a few more games in, might be one of the best defensive linemen they've ever had. Michael Dean Perry was an absolute monster for the defensive line. I'm surprised he's not in the Hall of Fame. Like, I thought he was a Hall of Famer, but
if you would have asked me, is this a player in the Hall of Fame or not, I would have said yes without hesitation. I wouldn't have stopped to think about it. He was unreal. Now we can only get one more.
Walter Johnson has a pretty significant advantage in games played, and also has approximately 66 sacks, which is a good amount.
Yeah. Okay, well, I was looking at Walter Johnson and Bob Golick.
I probably very, very thinly would lean towards Walter Johnson.
Linebacker. Looking at these, and you already said it. Well, I know who Jay's going to go with. Well, yeah, no duds. Clay Matthews.
Oh yeah, I mean, with
he's number 1. I mean,
number 1.
If we took one linebacker, I don't think we're even having a debate on who we're taking.
I'm going to be frank, and this is not because I've seen him play. I think that Quell Jackson should be in the running. He was a very underrated and a very good linebacker in Cleveland, despite how bad they were. Often underrated.
I know he has 8 interceptions. I thought he always kind of lacked a bit in his pass coverage, but in his run coverage, get the hell out of here. Yeah, you were going down. Quell Jackson's on here.
Man, Chip Banks didn't have the games played, but he was good.
Yeah, well, can you sit here and go, well, he didn't have the games played when he had that many sacks in fewer games?
Yeah.
Okay, now we are off to the defensive backs.
It seems almost a consensus when I was looking through articles that Tom Darden was the best DB in Browns history.
Really?
That was the consensus I got. Yeah, he does have.
I'm going to go up at number 1.
I don't know if I fully agree with something like that, but it is something that I was seeing a lot of in a lot of lists was that he was the best there was.
And we have Joe Hayden on there. And if I only get one of them, I'm taking Joe Hayden.
Oh, Joe Hayden, absolutely. Joe Hayden's was absolute monster.
I don't know if I'm willing to throw him up in the number 1 selection spot, though. Okay, so we really haven't narrowed this down a whole lot. We do have 4 selections, and did you just delete Thom? See ya, Thom.
Jet did.
Good job, Jet. That's not being facetious or sarcastic. We don't need a Thom on there. One of the names I think we would have to put on there then is Eric Turner. Just again from personal stories with your brother's favorite player, and again from actual Browns fans, if he meant that much to people who actually like the team, you got to put him on, right?
You're not wrong.
The other name that I'm leaning towards is Frank Minifield. That's the when I think of the old Cleveland Browns and defensive backs, that's the first name that pops up into my head. Okay, so that then takes us to our alt defense. We only get 2 of these.
We only get 2.
I want to take some of these over onto the offense because,
yeah, right.
Well, Cleveland really has been a more prominent defensive team than offensive team more often than not.
Well,
for me, Cleveland was better in the old days. We have one old guy up there, Jim Houston, goes on for me.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. I think he played in the era where the Browns were literal championship teams. So yeah.
See, the way I was looking at it is we got our championship era player.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only other one that was close to that would have been Bob Golick, but he never got there, but he was closer to like a prominent Browns team.
Yeah.
Hanford Dixon, Andrew Davis, no. It probably came down to Anthony Henry or Myles Garrett for me.
Yeah. Myles Garrett's just... you can't have a steal as a number 1 overall pick, but if you ever get close, he might be it. He's one of the best number 1 overall. He's going to go down as one of the better non-quarterback number 1 overall picks for the NFL, especially on defense.
Okay, well, let's head on over, look at our offensive lineup.
Lineup.
We have Paul Warfield, Webster Slaughter, Max Speedy at our wideouts with Ozzie Newsome at the tight end, helping to block for Jim Brown and Kevin Mack. That's a powerful back.
I don't want to get ran over by him.
Otto Graham at quarterback there. We have Joe Thomas, Gene Hickerson blocking through, Eric Metcalf returning punts in the backfield, out wide, doing it all. And in case this team doesn't score, they can get close enough for Lou Groza. Defensive lineup here. Thom Darden, Joe Hayden, Frank Minifield, and Eric Turner in your backfield. There's going to be a lot of balls coming back Cleveland's way there.
Oh, yeah.
Clay Matthews, Quell Jackson, Chip Banks, Michael Dean Perry, Walter Johnson. We have Myles Garrett to join them on there, and Jim Houston. That's a hell of a defensive line.
Yeah.
This was the Lunch Room Syndicate at the Jock Table with Christopher and Jay talking about the all-time Cleveland Browns football team. So we will see you next time. Deuces. We are discussing the Detroit Red Wings all-time team.
You dick fuck shit me. We don't have Browns fans in chat to tell us otherwise, so fuck you.